Now we're sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for having me. Wow, I'm really loud. I'm gonna wind up whispering by the end. Is that okay? Yeah. It's always such a pleasure to be here in this beautiful space, in this sanctuary, and amongst you in your community. So thank you always for having me. So I was reflecting a little bit on the title of this series, that we've been working with for the past last year and this year for Lent, opening our hearts to prayer, through meditation, and what that means to me. And the heart space in yoga, right? We know where our physical heart is, in our bodies, it's here. The energetic space of the heart space is also up here. And we like to talk about it as like garden, right? Our heart space is a garden that we tend, that we care for, that we treat very delicately, right? And we know that certain times of the year, we have to tend the garden in a different way. We have to harvest, we have to plant, we have to any other analogy or metaphor that of gardening. I do garden, but I'm not great at it. So it's actually a pretty bad metaphor for me, but it is the garden of the self that we need to tend. And then that brings to me, what does the heart space give us? And it gives us joy, right? That's where joy lives. Joy lives in our emotional heart space and our awareness there. And joy is effort, right? Joy doesn't just come naturally and sit down in front of you. It takes work, right? It takes work to find joy and to cultivate it and to stay in it. And I think sometimes as humans, our experiences, we get a little lazy with our cultivating, with our work, with our effort that we put into our own joy. So just take a moment and in your own life, like, what is bringing you joy right now? Maybe it's a situation, maybe it's something at work, something at home, and just like the first thing that quickly comes into your mind. And there's no right or wrong answer there. And just sort of seeing that in your mind's eye. So we're going to work a little bit with what joy is in this Lenten season and why I've sort of landed on this word of joy. So joy comes when we do deeply connect to our spiritual self and to God, right? And God is joyful. And that's what lives in our heart space. So that's why I've chosen this word to work with our meditation tonight. But I'm going to back up just a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of open the floor. Last week, we worked a little bit with a visualization, meditation, and we used the visualization of a field. And the speaker that spoke after me said he had a hard time like staying in the visualization of this field, that he kept getting distracted. So this is a really common occurrence and a common experience in meditation. And the funny thing is when you're distracted, that's kind of part of it, right? We're never not distracted by something. There's always stuff going on. Like even sitting in this room, I'm sure you're thinking about a couple other things while you're listening to my voice, right? We hear the sounds on the street. Our world is full of distractions. Our life is full of distraction. So when we're learning how to sit in that quiet, in that contemplative space, even in meditation, in prayer, part of the journey is to participate less in our distractions. So it's like if a dog comes into a room right now, if a dog came into this room and started barking, I can't ignore it, right? It's going to be really loud. I have to look at the dog and say, I see this dog is barking, and acknowledge that the dog is barking so that I can move on. into the work that I'm doing. Because if I don't acknowledge the distraction, then it's like, oh my goodness, there's a dog barking, there's a dog barking. And I can't concentrate because there's a dog barking. So it's like, then you get caught up in the distraction, trying to ignore the distraction, right? So that's sort of something that we do, is we learn how to sit and comfortably acknowledge what's pulling us away from our work or from our thoughts, so that we can come back to our thoughts. And maybe the dog stops barking. He might still be there, right? But maybe he sits down and he gets a little quieter. And then eventually you look over and the dog is like taking a nap. So it's not so big, right? So if that makes sense. So that's just a little thing. Does anybody have any questions, like in other ways to help come out of distraction, or to help come back to the work that you're doing in meditation or in contemplation? Because like, this is when we sit in community like this, it's a nice place to sort of ask the questions, because we all ask the same questions, right? We all have the same ones, and they're unique to us, yes, but they're very, very similar. So if anybody has a question like that, anybody at all. You can't turn your mind off. Right. Right. It's always. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, this is very, very typical and very, very common. So this is like, it's like riding a bike almost, right? To sort of answer that. The more you do it, right, the more comfortable it becomes. And again, the distractions are always there. We live in a world full of distraction, and we're human. We have lots of concerns and thoughts that are constantly going through our heads, right? But it's learning how to just acknowledge them, right? They're here, but I'm not going to answer. So maybe the question is like, oh, what am I cooking for dinner later? I'm sitting in meditation, but I have to put the chicken soup, and I have to go buy the carrots and then the celery. And then you see what's happening? The choices of your thoughts lead to the next thought, right? So if you back up and say, oh, I have to cook dinner later, acknowledged. Okay, I know I have to cook dinner later, but I'm not going to go through in my head the steps of the cooking and the steps of the preparing. So it's just that conscious, like, backing up away. Does that make sense? And then the more time you practice that, as things come in, as thoughts flow through, and I promise you, 10 seconds later, you're going to have another thought. Oh, I have to have coffee with my best friend in the morning. What time do I have to leave? Right? So you do it the same thing with the next thought. You back up, you acknowledge, you back up, you come back to your breath. That's why we come back to the breath always. Okay, thank you for asking the question. I hope that brings a little clarity to that process, right? And that's the same too when we're in any sort of work or in any sort of intentional sitting and thinking and reflecting. It's always the same, right? Okay. All right, so let's get started with our more active meditation. So we're going to stay seated if that's comfortable for you, and we're actually going to do a little seated stretching. Okay, why are we doing seated stretching? Sometimes we have to release a little bit of physical tension so that we can get comfortable just sitting down, right? Because if I sit down and I have all this tension from the day like coursing through my body, maybe even discomforts, or my neck hurts because I didn't sleep well, guess what? I'm going to only be thinking about how uncomfortable I am in my seat as I'm fidgeting around. So that's kind of why sometimes stretching and moving helps a little bit before you intentionally sit, to breathe and quiet the mind. So we're going to stay seated, and all we're going to do is we're going to take our hands, big inhale, take them all the way up, and then exhale, palms down. Really stretch, 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 stretch. Good. And then inhale, palms up, and reach the fingers up to the sky. And then with your exhale, float them down. So we all breathe different, right? So my inhale might be shorter or longer than yours. Inhale up and exhale. Right, inhale up, 2 more. And exhale. Last one. And exhale. Okay, if you have a stiff neck like me, this one's really nice. It's very, very gentle. I just saw Stephen rolling his head. All right, so we could talk about that yogically. Why you be careful when you roll your neck around. Okay, when you lift your chin, you're just gonna lift your chin, take your gaze up to the ceiling, right? You feel that very gentle stretch right in your throat, okay? On your exhale, your shoulders are gonna stay down, but you're gonna tuck your chin down towards your heart and let your head be a little heavy there. Now you feel the stretch up the back of your neck, right? It's a nice little release. Inhale, come back through center. All right. And we're going to stretch the sides of your head, and then I promise we'll let all this movement go. And take your right hand to the left side of your head and gently, gently allow your right ear to come down towards your right shoulder. Okay, so you feel your left side opening up a little bit. On your inhale, come through. And then exhale, do your other side. So this is like, if you're a neck roller, this is an option instead of rolling your neck. And then release that. All right, one last little thing here. You're gonna take your hands in a little clasp, gently kind of pull a little bit right here. Take an inhale, relax your shoulders down away from the ears. Check in, right? If they're up here, just check in, settle them down. Take your inhale, and then exhale, press your palms forward. Good. So two different directions. Reach your palms forward, shoulders back, stretch out your arms. And on your next exhale, gently float your hands down. Okay. So I want you to feel really aware of how you're sitting. Feet are flat on the ground. And allow your support behind you, if you're sitting at home, to be nice and supported on your couch or on the benches here. Okay, and palms just resting gently on your lap. And if you feel comfortable, just close your eyes here. And always begin by just observing. Observe how you feel physically. I want you to just notice how you're breathing right now. So nice, gentle inhales, gentle exhales. Maybe you even feel your heart beating in your chest. And when you're ready, you're going to take a little bit of a deeper inhale and you're going to hold your breath at the top. So you're going to inhale, pause, and then exhale, gently release. One more just like that. Inhale deeply, hold at the top. Exhale, gentle with control, release. Okay, when you're ready, I want you to take one hand over your heart space and rest your other hand right on top of your hand. So your hands on hand, and just a gentle press. Feel your heart beating there. And give yourself permission to enter into this meditation. And give yourself permission to enter into these next few moments. And when a thought or a distraction comes and is maybe very loud, just acknowledge it, know it's there, but resist the urge to participate. And right here, take a moment to set your intention. And keep your intention in the present tense, in the positive. And know that whatever your intention is, you are already there. You are already on the journey. And when you're ready, keeping your eyes gently closed, just float your palms to rest in your lap. And again, invite any tension in the physical body to just release on your exhales. And in your mind's eye, I just want you to see and hear the word joy. See how you would write it on a piece of paper. Write it a few times. Write it fast. And then write it slow. Hear your own voice repeating the word joy. Use your inhales to bring that sensation into your physical body, maybe into your heart space. And in your mind's eye, I want you to picture an object that brings you joy. It can be small or big, but a material, physical object. Once you see it, begin to explore the shape of this object. Explore its edges, the color, the material it's made out of. Begin to remember why it brings you joy. And where do you feel that feeling of joy in your body? Where did this object come from? And how did it come to be in your possession? Again, see the edges of this object, its outline. The color and the material it's made out of. Taking a deep inhale through your nose and release out of your mouth if it's comfortable. Okay, gently blink open your eyes, bring your palms to prayer and just rub your hands together. Okay, so sometimes, right, when we're thinking about an object, right, it's an object that we're very familiar with, it's easy to really reflect on it because you know what it feels like in your hands, you know what it maybe even smells like. So that's kind of a nice way to start to connect to how to come away from those distractions, right? Is really exploring that shape in your mind's eye. We're going to move on with it. We're going to do 3 parts of this meditation. I'm saving the best for last, okay? So the second part, we're going to go right back in. So when you're ready, just get nice and comfortable in your seat, hands on your lap, drop right in, as we like to say in the studio. Take a deep inhale through the nose. Controlled exhale. And give yourself permission to enter into this meditation. Coming back to the idea of joy and seeing that word. Hear it being spoken to you. And begin to envision the face of someone who brings you joy. See them sitting right in front of you. And begin to hear their voice saying the word joy. And as you settle into this space, again, see the face of the person sitting across from you. In your mind's eye, explore their features, their brow, their nose, their hair. And notice within your physical body where that sense of joy is, right in the heart. If this person brings a smile to your face, allow yourself to smile. How did this person come into your life? What do they mean to you? Once again, see them very clearly sitting across from you. And when you're ready, take a deep inhale and exhale, release if you're comfortable out of the mouth. And gently blink open your eyes, rub your hands together. Okay. And this is our final stage of this meditation. This one's going to be a little longer, just a little bit. So get nice and comfortable in your seat. And when you're ready, just lean back ever so slightly, allow your hands to rest. Take a deep inhale and a controlled exhale. And give yourself permission to enter into this meditation. Once again, see the word joy. Breathe it into your heart space as you gently inhale. Exhale any tension or any resistance. And take this moment to connecting to your spiritual self. Cultivating that sense of joy. Taking a moment to connect in the heart space, deep within you. And allowing your connection to God. live in your heart space. And feeling that connection to joy. And just taking a few moments in quiet. Allowing yourself to visit even deeper into your heart. What does the sensation feel like? Beginning to come back to your breath. Taking a deeper inhale into your heart space. Controlled exhale, release. A few more at your own pace. And when you feel ready, bring one hand over your heart, bring the opposite on top, and gentle press. And gently blink open your eyes. Okay, let your hands float away. And we'll just close with one more inhale and exhale together. Release out the mouth, deep inhale. And exhale. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing this space with me as always. Thank you, thank you. If anyone ever has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Amanda. Do you have any question? Do you have any question? Oh, Dan, do you have question? You are muted. No?
Sorry, that was a mistake. No.
Okay.
Just made
No
a wacky gesture, that's all.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Sorry.
Anyone has a question? Good, good. So it's a time for the story, and the guest storyteller today is Ji Sun Kwak. Please welcome her. As I promised, I am going to share my story around how I became an ordained pastor. As you know, that I grew up in Korea, and it was the time when, at least in my own surroundings, the woman couldn't be ordained. I didn't see anyone being ordained. So I had no idea that female could become an ordained pastor. But my mother sent all of us to church regularly, and we enjoyed being in the church. And one day when I was 10 years old, my mother took me to a woman, older lady, that supposedly a very spiritual lady that prays over people, and somehow she is supposedly has a gift of seeing the future of the person. So my mother took me there. I don't know why she took me out of 4 children I know I was her favorite, but so she took me there, and the woman prayed over me and said, "Oh, this little girl has a call to ministry." So I did not know what that meant, of course. And my mother did not know how to take it, because in my mother's mind, a woman wouldn't become a pastor. So she thought maybe my daughter would work at church or something. And I forgot about that. And then, but from time to time, it just came to my mind, what does that mean? But then I was too young to worry about it. Of course, forget about it again. And when I was about in middle school age, we had a very spiritual youth pastor, and he helped us to reshape our faith and helped us to meet personal Jesus. So I met Christ when I was in middle school age personally. So I really became Christian at that time. Before then, I just went to church, just memorized scriptures and everything that Sunday school taught me. But from then on, I became, I could say, a Christian. And one day, Billy Graham came to Korea. And so thousands of people gathered in this field and sat on the ground outdoor, listening to Billy Graham. And I was there too with my youth group members. My youth pastor took us there. Bunch of us went together. And I don't remember what he preached at all. I don't remember a word. But I remember when he called to stand up if you commit your life to Christ. He always do that. Altar call, we call it, right? So I remember my heart moved and I stood up. I stood up and said in my heart to God that I will commit my life to God. And of course, I was too young to know what that meant. So because I was in middle school, as I was choosing my career along the way, I kind of try to focus to the way that I could commit to help other people, because that's, I thought, what it meant to commit my life to God. So I majored in college, theology and social work together. So I thought that I would become a social worker to help others based on theology, meaning, based on God's love. So I did, still did not have any idea about what it means to become an ordained pastor. And then I came to the United States. And at that time, I was married, newly married, and came together to the United States and went to the seminary, Drew Seminary. I was pregnant, so I couldn't become a full-time student. I was just part-time because I was pregnant and had to raise a child and all that. But my marriage was not healthy. It was pretty abusive. And I don't want to get into the details right now, but at least I could tell that it was not at all a healthy marriage, very controlled. And then it became very physically abusive. So at that point, I just thought, I needed to get out, because when it became, violence physically, then that's not something that I want to keep allowing myself to be vulnerable for that. But there are a lot of stories that are around there that probably at one point that I could share those with you, because I experienced a lot of struggles, but at the same time, tremendous amount of grace of God in the midst. But anyway, so I had to be separated and finally divorced. It was very, very painful divorce process. But I was too young when I was divorced. I was only 28 years old with a child, 4-year-old at the time, and had no money, nothing, and had left with the, you know, symptoms that you could imagine and you could see from a woman who was very much abused. So I had all those symptoms in me, meaning that I didn't have any confidence. I hated myself. I thought I was just ugliest thing in the whole world. Nobody would like me. I mean, I was just really at a terrible shape. So, but but again, in those moments, God showed me a lot of graces. So that's a lot of story too that I could share at some other time, because I don't want to take too much time on it, because now I'm talking about my ordination story. So I was really, really struggling, but I had to get up because my daughter was young and someone has to feed her. So, in a sense, having her was a grace. At the same time, a burden too, because I couldn't even take care of myself at the time. I did not want to get up and do nothing, but then I had to get up and take care of my daughter. But anyway, it was a grace for me. So I did not want to become a pastor at that time. In order to become a United Methodist Church pastor, you have to go through 2 to 3 years of process besides, finishing your seminary. And the process is long and really hard. And I finished everything that I needed to do except the one last stage. One last stage was going through 3 days of interview by 80 members of Board of Ordained Ministry. About half of the clergy, half of the laity people would form this board, and they would interview those candidates 3 days. And you will be interviewed all day, evening, by those 80 people in small groups. So you would meet, many different small groups until you meet everybody. And then they would vote whether they would pass this person to ordain or not. And that was the last stage. And of course, that's a serious stage, and the last stage. And at that time, they would not pass those people who are not ready to serve a local church. Even if the person is excellent candidate, if the person for some personal reason cannot serve the local church full time, then they would defer the ordination. They will not ordain the person. That was their regulation at that time. But anyway, I thought, since I cannot even take care of myself, I failed in relationship. I failed in marriage. And I don't even like myself. I don't even want to pray. And, and how can I possibly become a pastor and become a leader, a spiritual leader for a congregation? So I thought, no, I'm not going to that retreat. So I shared with some of my friends, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to proceed this. And so I went to bed. It was the night before the first day of interview, one of my friends called me middle of the night. So I woke up and answered the phone. And she, her name is Vicky Hanjin. She is a pastor, a female white American pastor, a very close friend of mine. And she called me and said, Chisan, I had a dream. And she said, in her dream, she saw me sitting in darkness, praying, and God in a human form showed up, and the light from the top shone upon me. It's like when you go to a theater that this light, when everything's dark, that light just focus light comes down on one person, and the God showed up and held my hand and took me to the place where multitude of women crying in the darkness. So she had to call me and tell me that story, tell me the dream, and said, you gotta go tomorrow. So I dragged myself to go to the retreat. I didn't want to go. But when I heard that story, oh my Lord, God wants me to become a pastor. I don't want to, but I think I gotta go. And I just went very reluctantly. And so when you go to the retreat, you stay with those candidates in hotel rooms, and you might stay overnight after interview, you stay overnight for 3 nights. And every one of my colleagues were so like intense, and they were really working hard to read their material one more time to prepare for the next interview. They were really working hard to show the best of them. But I was not really interested in showing my best at the time. I was like, no matter what I did, I'm going to pass. I knew it. So I just, was really free and shared with the interviewers my struggles. I didn't want to be here. I didn't share about the dream, but I am here now, and I want to find the meaning, because I really don't know if this is my call. I even doubt about it, but I am here. So sort of like, you do whatever you want to do with me. But they asked me questions, I of course answered whatever I knew. It was more of a two-way conversation rather than they interview me and I answer whatever the questions that they asked me. So, and during those interview time, at one point, they asked me something, I forget what it was. And I told them that I don't think I could become a good pastor because I failed. So I shared my struggle with them honestly. But one of the pastors who was in that room told me that, Jisun, because you experienced the failure, I believe you could become a better pastor. You would understand the pain and struggles of others a lot better than any other people who didn't have any of those experiences. So that really shocked me. because in my Korean culture, divorce is unheard of at that time, and it's a sin. It's the biggest failure, and it's something that so shameful. But that shameful thing could become, in a way, a blessing to the leader, and that really shocked me, and that really made me rethink about whole thing. So and after the interview they went through the voting process, and my district superintendent called me to inform the result of the voting. And he told me, you passed. And he said, we decided to ordain you whether you will be serving a local church or not. We decided to let you wait until whatever you feel ready, but we are still going to ordain you. So it was something that they would never do. They said, we even had to change our policy for you. And he said, we decided to do it because if we don't do it now, you're going to run away. And we didn't want you to run away. So they actually held me to go through the process of convincing myself to become an ordained pastor. So here I am now. So I am really grateful that they did that to me. And I think they saw my struggle and at least saw that after this journey of struggling and doubting, that at least I have a good, at least, heart to become an ordained ministry, which I didn't see at that time, but I believe they saw it and they wanted to support that. And I am really grateful for that, because being a pastor is the most wonderful thing I could ever become. And I wouldn't really change with anything. And so I'm really grateful for that. Thank you so much for listening to my story, my long story. And there are a lot of stories along the way that I'm sure that there will be some time that I could share those with you along the way, probably in my sermon or next year during the Lenten series. I don't know. Yeah. Do you have any question? Yes. Mhm. Oh, so that actually, after that encounter with the person who interviewed me and shared with me that I could actually, that experience, the failure could even become a blessing to me, for me, that really convinced me that actually that year I went into the local church. So I was at that time a PhD student. So I served Mendham United Methodist Church half-time. I couldn't be full-time because I was a student, which also was not allowed at that time. But they allowed me to serve both, the church and school. So I started in 1995 when I was ordained. And the church was a really small congregation, only 15 people was on Sunday, and older congregation too. but we grew together. They raised me. There are a lot of stories that they helped me to really grow. And they raised me. I was 30 years old when I was ordained and served at that church. But they raised me and my daughter, and I was there for 12 years. And after 4 years of serving, the church grew, become a full-time church, and had full-time youth pastor too, because the church grew enough to have that, and I had an assistant pastor as well. So we grew together. Yeah. Anyone has any other question? No question online? Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I really cherish this time. The meditation always is helpful to me, learning a lot from you. I wish that all of my congregation be here and learn from you, Amanda. Maybe you should come on Sunday sometime and teach us. Yeah. And listening to the stories of other people always also inspire me too. I hope, those stories has inspired you as well. And thank you once again for being here. And I will see you on Sunday and next week. May God be with you and bless you and bring you joy, and you find joy as well. Amen. Thank you, everyone online.